Whenever I say the word mentor, I think of Joey Tribbiani on Friends when he
I
said
knew
mento.
exactly what you were going to say when you said that.
It lives rent free there.
Okay, now that we're all done hanging out over here, let's go over here to this like smaller setting. Let's order some pizza. Let's pop open some wine. Let's turn on Gilmore Girls.
We should do something really fun since this is our 10th episode, and I think we should give them that email template for free. We'll link it in the show notes.
How do I get more leads?
How do I stand out in my market?
Is it unprofessional to talk about my kids on Instagram?
Should I have one account or two?
Do I really need a personal brand as a real estate agent?
We are the Modern Agent Marketing Girls. We are two agents turned marketing experts who believe you can become the go-to real estate girl in your market, all because you are you. I'm Chelsea Petersen, founder and CEO of Modern Agent Social Club.
And I'm Kayla Fox, Modern Agent's content creator. Let us be your guides as we talk about what it means to market your real estate business the modern way.
So refill your favorite beverage, open your notes app, and get ready to build a business and a brand you're obsessed with. Let's go. Hi, Kayla.
Hi, Chelsea. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing Girls podcast.
I'm so happy to be here, and today is episode 10 that we are recording.
Yes, it feels like a milestone.
You should get balloons, and then you can do like the increments.
Yes,
10,
yes.
100, 200. But I have been loving recording the podcast. I'm so excited that we decided to do this. I was reading an email last night talking about like how you can get stuck with your content. And, you know, I think there's all these parameters with Instagram, like, oh, you can only have your caption be so long, and oh, the reel should be like this, and the carousel should be this way, and all these things. And it can almost like suffocate the like creativity in your brain of like what you actually want to say, because you're thinking too much about all these things you need to fit in the box. And the email then went on to say, like, having a long form outlet like a podcast, like a blog, like Substack can help with that, because it just lets you freely talk, and that kind of pulls your personality out more without trying to confine it in this, you know, Instagram space. And I think that ties in perfectly to today's topic, because not only is that true for a podcast, but it can also be true for email marketing, which that's what we're talking about today.
I agree. And what's really cool is, you know, you talk about like email marketing, you talk about podcasting, blogging, all of those things are long form content. And the truth is, like, there's only so much you can fit in a 30-second reel on Instagram. And I feel like our minds are always there because we're talking about social media all the time. But there is a time and place for that long-term, like long-form content. So I'm excited to talk about email marketing today. I do feel like it's underutilized in the real estate world and not taken advantage of in the right ways.
You had asked, or you had written on our notes on the Google Doc, I was looking at it, and one of the questions was like, did you use email as an agent, directed at me? And my first thought was like, no, I definitely did not utilize it the way I do today. Or if I could go back, if I would have like known back then, that would have been like my bread and butter thing. Because while social media is amazing and you have this opportunity to connect with so many people, email just takes it a step further. It's like inviting someone over to have a cup of coffee one-on-one versus like trying to talk to everyone in the room. And I think that's almost like a very like reassuring feeling, because you're not like, even to this right now, currently, I feel like I will, like that email I read said, I'll open up more in an email. I'll like kind of let it out more in an email than in a piece of Instagram content, or even in a live video or in a podcast. Like, it's just so much easier for me. And I think you can be a lot more intentional with your marketing strategy as a whole if you have email combined with social media and you're not just relying on social. Like, social media is great. It's a great way to reach people locally. It's a great way to stay in front of a bunch of eyeballs at once, but you're also relying on an algorithm to do anything. And I remember way back, and this is like probably as I was starting the membership side of my business. So I was still selling real estate, but I listened to Jenna Kutcher. She was like, if you ask me where I got like how I learned everything, it was from the Gold Digger podcast. Mm-hmm. And I did invest in her courses too. But even to this day, I'm giving her credit for that, because she just like put me on that path. I remember driving in my car, listening to Gold Digger, going to show houses, and like, it was all these little seeds getting planted in my brain. And she did one on email marketing, and I was kind of like tuned out, like, I don't need email marketing. I just need to figure out social media. Like, that's where I'm going to grow and figure out how to reach more agents. And it was like almost like a light bulb went off because she gave this example of she met with like a mentor or something. And whenever I say the word mentor, I think of Joey Tribbiani on Friends when he
I
said
knew
mento.
exactly what you were gonna say when you said that. A
I
mentor?
literally can't say that word without that like scene playing in my brain. It lives rent free there. So, anyways, she was telling the story about how someone asked her like, "Well, how big is your list?" And she was like my to-do list, it's a mile long or whatever. And he's like, "No, your email list." And she's like, "What?" And that's kind of how I feel like I was back then. Like I'm like, "What?" Like I don't have time for that. But I think it has she even tells how she just kept talking about it regardless of people really caring because she knew how important it was. And obviously, fast forward now, a lot of people have jumped to the email train just because Instagram and every social media platform has grown so much. Or look at what just happened with TikTok. Like, you don't own anything on social media. So if it goes away tomorrow, the last thing I want is my entire business and livelihood to just disappear. And like, how else would I contact all those people again or get in front of them? Or like, I'd have to go start on a new platform, whatever. Like, it just felt so overwhelming. And I'm like, I need an email list. So I started an email list the second pretty much that I had this business. I had an email list.
I did start email when I got my real estate license, but again, I only did real estate full time until I started working here, just for about 7, 8 months. But before I did real estate, I had my own t-shirt business, and I created like t-shirts for coaches' wives and for like football wives, because that's what I am. And it was really fun. And I feel like when I first started that business, it was like there wasn't really anything else out there that like was completely dedicated to that, so I was easily able to like create this big community. There was a lot of like hype, I had a lot of like positive reaction, I had a lot of sales. But of course, like over like time, things can slow down and you have to find new ways to like connect with people. And I remember one time just feeling like frustrated that my sales were down, and I was sending emails, I was telling them like, here's what's coming up and whatever, but I just wasn't getting good feedback from them. And finally, I remember it was actually like the beginning of football season, and I remember being nervous on Friday morning for the game that night and thinking like, oh, I just hate this feeling. And then I just thought like, I bet my audience is feeling the same way right now. And so I wrote them an email, and I was just like, hey, like, to the wives who are really nervous today, like, let me tell you some things. And I talked about how like the scoreboard does not define your worth. And like also like, good luck tonight, I hope you're having a great time. And then I would even share like, hey, we're having the staff over after a game, here's what we're making tonight, like share like a little recipe. And I had like zero sales content in that. And the moment I started doing that, my business like exploded. And because people also took that email, and then those wives sent it to their whole staff to be like, hey, like, listen to this. And they would do it every Friday, and then more of those people would subscribe and all of that. So I say all of that because I think a lot of agents are using email marketing. A lot of agents do understand the power of it, but I do think a lot of them are only reaching out if they have a listing or if there's a local event to share. And they're missing out on like just pure connection and just pure like storytelling, relating, non-sales emails. So I'm excited to teach people how they can really like implement this strategy and show them how we can help make it easier for them.
What I think makes email work in that way is that it's a super authentic feeling. Like you just emailed how you were feeling and it like connected. And when you were saying that, I was thinking back to being in real estate and they had these like canned newsletters, and I got them from lenders or from, whoever's email list I was on. And I'm like, why the heck would I ever send an email? And that just brought back to mind why I never sent emails, thinking like that was the way to do it. And me and my, like, I hate everything cookie cutter real estate. But I think with that being said, email is a place where not only you can connect one-on-one, but it's also where you can share like in a way that makes someone feel like they're opening an email from a friend and not from a business, just like that's our whole social media take too. And I think it's really important to like lean in to that and like have that be like the foundation of like anything you're doing with your marketing, because it's just going to come across so much better. Especially like this isn't a postcard, it's not a billboard, it's not meant to be that type of media. It's meant to be something someone wants to open, something someone wants to read, just like that Instagram piece of content too.
Well, I'll just emphasize too, like what you said is such a great point because I think, we've talked about how social media is not a billboard, like it's meant to be social. We also have said like we feel like the biggest problem is when people try to treat their social media like a website, Your social media is not a website, just like your email is not social media either. It's just a place where you can like dive deeper. And we like taglines for emails that are like, the best after party emails on the internet, like things like that that just feel like, okay, now that we're all done hanging out over here, let's go over here to this like smaller setting. Let's order some pizza. Let's pop open some wine. Let's turn on Gilmore Girls and let's just like chat. I want to see the links that of like things that you've purchased that you've enjoyed, like whether it's like skincare or like something like a new Roomba or whatever.
Like your favorite book, the books you're reading,
Yeah.
about that recent season of Love is Blind or whatever. Like it's the after party.
Yes. And of course, in those conversations, someone is going to say, hey, didn't you list that house on Market Street? Like, whatever happened with that? Just like you're going to ask someone else. Like, I have so many friends that are nurses, and I'm always like, tell me what happened in the ER this week. Like, tell me what happened on the OB unit. I just think it's so fascinating. So those conversations are going to happen too, but we have to have a like a sacred place where we can just have like those more intimate friend to friend conversations. And just for the record, those conversations are not unprofessional. Like when I even think to like when I would go to like a closing, when I'm sitting there across from like the lady that I worked with for like title company, we aren't just talking about business. Like the last time I saw her, it was like, oh my gosh, where'd you get your hair done? That looks so good. Or like, I love those boots or whatever. Like that is what we're talking about, even when we're at closing. So I think we have to just like get that out of our minds that like, it's not unprofessional to have a personality and to make those like connections.
And I think your emails can still come across in a professional way. You can choose like what to share versus what not to share. Like maybe you decide, I don't really want my clients to know that I watch Love is Blind. That's fine. Then maybe you share like a book that you just read, or you share your favorite parks that you take your kids to. Like why would an agent use email besides for the fact that they get to have this more one-on-one connection? Like if that's not enough to convince someone, if it's not enough to convince someone that they don't own their Instagram, what is another angle with this? Or like what else should they know? Like what else should someone know about it? And the first thing that I think of is really that like you can put so much effort and time and energy into Instagram, and as we all know, it doesn't guarantee you anything. Like you could spend an hour to create one piece of content, and that piece of content could have crickets, it could fall flat, it could do nothing.
Absolutely. Well, they say, I pulled up some stats. They say 1 to 3% of your audience will see your social media content, which is really depressing. But they say that email has 40 times the ROI.
When you put effort into email marketing, you're going to see a high return, and it's worth the payoff. Whereas like social media is a little bit trickier. Like yes, it 100% can work. Social media can work, but I think when you pair it with email, that's where like everything really starts to work together.
Absolutely. And you think about when you post something on like Instagram or Facebook or wherever, you again, only like 1 to 3% of people are going to see that. When you send something to your email list, every single person on that email list is going to see your name in their inbox. That does not mean that they're going to open your email, that they're going to read every word, that they're going to click through, that they're going to do the things you're asking them to do. But that's also okay. I think about like some of the emails I receive. I feel like I do this every year around like Christmas time, when you get a ton of like sales emails, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I need to like clean out my inbox. Like, who don't I want to follow anymore? But there were a few that I'm like, you know what? Like, I have not opened their emails in forever, but I also don't want to forget them, because when I'm ready for that thing, I want to buy from them. Like, this is the company that I want to use. And the same is true as like agents. Like, even if you're sending these emails in your community, not all of them are opening them, which they say like a good like open rate is anywhere between like 17 to 30%. But even if they're not between that 17 and 30% of the people opening your email, they're still seeing your name. Like, they're still remembering that you exist.
Let's say someone's listening and they want to start an email list right now. And like, we're not going to talk techie stuff here in this episode. This is more of kind of like the vibe, like the email vibe. Like, what would you send? And I know this stops so many people from sending emails because they're like, well, I don't really know what to say.
Share stories. So like, how do you actually do that? And I will say, like, I think it's a matter of practice. Like, I think you get better with it over time. But we'll keep a notes app open on my phone, and every once in a while, just like something funny or interesting will just happen. that I'll write down, and I'll think like, oh, I could see that being like a really good email. For example, a couple months ago, we went to Disney World, and my parents have an RV, and we stayed at this like Fort Wilderness campground. And it was so funny because we would drive around the campground and people would bring, first of all, like huge fire pits, chairs. They would even bring like signs like Fort Wilderness family, and they would have like the number like every year that they've ever been there. Just lots of like, they would bring their golf carts, like everything. And one night we like were walking around the campground after like going to the park all day, and we were like, man, like we didn't think to bring any of this stuff. And all of a sudden my mom was like, that's because we're not really campers. Like we just want our own bathroom. Like we don't want to share a bathroom with everybody, and we want our own kitchen. And we all just kind of laughed. But that made me think right then, like, oh, this is kind of true for like real estate agents. Like everyone in real estate got their license, but not everyone got it for the same reason. And so why are we all trying to like fit into one mold? Like the truth is, like you can use that one thing. Like we can use our RV in a different way. You can use your real estate license and your marketing in a different way. And so just like taking note of like funny conversations of something that might have happened like in the grocery store checkout lane, or like a funny email that you got that made you think of something. But when you take the time just to like know, even if you don't know the direction that you're going to go with it yet, just taking the time to write it down, because otherwise you'll just forget, and then the next time you go to write an email you'll like be frustrated with yourself.
Another thing I thought of that's super easy, and I will open any email that has anything related to this in the subject line, is like a TV show. Think about like, so I'm obsessed with White Lotus, and I'm watching the new season right now, and I had to bring this up in today's episode. I was just waiting for a moment for it to make sense. But like I right now want to send an email that is like related to White Lotus, because what makes it work is that it's familiar. Like even if you don't watch White Lotus, even if you hate it, you've probably heard of it. So me putting it in the subject line of an email is going to like resonate. So if I'm like, how buying a house is like season 3 of White Lotus, I'm gonna be like, wait, what? Like I don't even watch White Lotus, but now I need to know what you're gonna say. Like I've opened emails in the past that are like Harry Potter. I've never seen Harry Potter, which I know is crazy. It's like ones, I just opened one the other day, and it had like the theme song of Friends was like the subject line. But it just helps someone feel like they can see themselves in that in some way, and then they want to read it. So like I would even challenge yourself like to take a topic and think, how could I talk about this clip from the show, this whatever, and spin that into an email that kind of circles back to real estate, that somehow tells a story about a client. But I really learned about this storytelling into email strategy from Laura Bell Gray of Talking Shrimp. She sends like super hilarious emails, and like the one tip I never forget that she gives is like to start your story in the middle of the story. So like don't start by saying like, hey, first name, last week on Friday, like I got up, brushed my teeth, and I decided I was going to go get coffee. And then I got to like, you don't need to tell the whole story. Like no one needs to know like the street name or like the specifics, but like you just dive into the middle of the story, and then you kind of like go from there on what the story is actually about. So like an example might be something like, maybe the point of your story is that you're going to share like a question that you got asked at a showing. And you're like, this would be a great email content because it's valuable. It happened at a showing. People usually do like to know about this. It wasn't like the first time I was asked that question. And maybe like the house had some funny feature, or there was like chickens in the yard or something. And like you start the email saying something like, there I am in the middle of the yard surrounded by 18 chickens, and my buyer asks me ... And then you can kind of circle back on like why they asked you that, why it's valuable to someone else. So whether it's like a personal story or sharing a question a client asked you, I think it's a practice to tell these stories, but it's easier than it sounds probably. And if that sounds a little bit too intimidating, like what's another angle we could give them to like start today? What's like the first email you would send today? And I think back to what you said a couple minutes ago about their real estate story. And mine is like, and this is how I started, and I've told it in an email before. It says like $178,000 later, I got my real estate license. That's the hook of why I got my license, and I've sent it in an email. But like that's intriguing. Like, it costs you $178,000 to get your real estate license. What does that mean? And it like that piques curiosity. So that's like a great starting point. And again, try to dig into the middle of your story. Don't be like, oh, I hated teaching, so I decided to quit, and I like real estate was the only thing I could think of. Like, no, dig deeper. Why was it real estate? What exact thing happened? Like, were you sitting there with like gum stuck in your hair because the 5-year-old like threw it at you, and then you're like about to cry and you're like, I'm only making this much money. Like, I got to get out of here. So like dig deep and like share that story.
If you're feeling like I'm not really sure I'm ready for like all the storytelling quite yet, another great place to start, I think, is like sharing like something about your local community. Again, we are not big fans of just like spitting out a bunch of local events like you're the Chamber of Commerce. Like, we like the idea of things being a little bit more personalized, but maybe an email could be something like the one thing that I do in city name every weekend. Or like something that's like very specific like that, like where you'll find me every Wednesday night in city name. And then even as you're sharing about those local places, like stories will probably come to mind for you, like maybe like about your first time there, or like the one thing that you always ordered, or like even someone that works there that like you always make sure you say hi to them, like because they're there. But I think sharing like anything local is a great way to start.
Another idea with that is something to get you going that I love is to name your email. When you name it, you make it more of an experience and you can kind of talk about it in that way. So actually, our email currently at this very moment is called the Weekly Sip, and we are rebranding it, which is going to be super fun and a whole new thing. But I'm basically going to send an email along the lines of like, this is the last weekly sip you'll ever read. Like something dramatic. People are going to open it and then they're going to be able to see like, here's the new name of your email. I mean, nothing within the content is like shifting dramatically. It's like we're just rebranding it for a fun, fresh spin since starting the podcast. And like, again, that's the thing. I've had the weekly sip for 7 years. You can change things whenever you want. Like, I wouldn't recommend doing it weekly or even annually, but like you can, as your business evolves, as you grow, like you can always change it. So don't let that hold you up, but let it empower you to name your email and make it this like experience someone can join, because it sounds a lot more exciting to say, hey, do you want to get the weekly sip where I share da 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 da, and you have like your tagline, more so than just saying like, do you want to get my emails? Like, no one just wants to get your emails, because if you open your inbox right now, 90% of them are just delete, delete, delete. Like, we don't want that to be the case. Something else I just did too that really helps is in the email, I asked a question. So if you haven't sent an email in a really long time, or maybe ever, in your first email, whether you tell a story, you share a local thing, maybe you're introducing them to your new monthly email that has a name and it's themed, is to ask a question right away with like a multiple choice answer, like A, B, C, D. Or recently I did this with bread emojis. I did like the bagel, the baguette, like a croissant. And I said like, respond with the bread emoji that relates to you the most. And I had so many responses. Like, but when you ask a question that like resonates, and it could be a local question, like, what is your favorite coffee shop in our area? Like, and you put 4 different coffee shops or other, I think that could be a great way to just get that like engagement going in your email.
Too, like another thing that you can share in your emails is like something that's unique to you, like something from your brand menu. I know I opened up an email. She's an author, and she put like everything I wore on my book tour, and it was just like literally like little snippets of like selfies that she took, but she's always sharing like her outfits and whatnot. So it totally made sense for her to have a little snippet like that. She wasn't just saying like, here's what my book's about, you should buy it. She was saying like, this is what I'm wearing, you can wear it too. Like, she provided some links and all of that. So if you think about things that are unique to you, even if it's like, if you love to read and you always have something in your bottom of your email that talks about like, hey, this is my latest book, or has anyone read this one? Like, I'm not sure if I should pick it up yet, or whatever. That's a great way to get people to like engage too.
Another place I love a real estate tie-in with email is in the PS. So no, you're not sending this like generic newsletter. You're sending like something people would want to consume, something of value, but then at the end, maybe you feature a favorite listing of yours, or your listing of the week, or maybe you feature a favorite local spot, or you can kind of bring things in that way too. Like, the PS is powerful. It's also a great way to have like a little mini call to action once in a while, whether it's like, hey, I created a free resource, like maybe you have a 2025 market guide that's telling all about the local market, or maybe you have a local guide, and I would not recommend just blatantly sending that to everyone, I would do it as a PS and have them ask for it so you can see who's actually like asking versus just like sending it to everyone on your list.
Most people are not going to read every single word of your email. So I've seen emails before that like literally the PS is like, in case you skimmed this email, here's the bullet points. Like, here's what you need to know. And just like 2 or 3 sentences of what it said, and then that was it. And sometimes what the PS was about, I was like, oh wait, I did want to read that. Like, where was that? And I'll go back up and read more of it. Another like way just to make people open your email is if there's some form of like personalization. You don't want to put their first name in every email subject line, but when you do it once in a while, they're more likely to open that. We like to do email subject lines that are like beyond like, have you seen this, Chelsea? But we can say like Chelsea's new favorite home feature, or like Chelsea's new favorite lip gloss, or whatever. And like, it's like, oh wait, what is my new favorite lip gloss? Like, tell me about myself.
You could kind of come up with a cadence for how you structure your emails. If you want to maybe make one of every 5 more specific to real estate, it could be you saying, this actually brought this to mind, like the home features my buyers are looking for right now. And maybe you take a longer form Instagram post, like a carousel or something like that, and you turn that into your email for the week. But then when the email's more real estate heavy, make sure you do like a PS of, hey, my family and I went to this new ice cream place this weekend, blah, blah, blah. Like, here's what we thought, or here's our favorite flavor, or we watched this show on Netflix, or don't waste your time watching this movie. It was terrible. Like, it could be anything, right? Like, just you have that little weave in of something personal when your email is more real estate heavy, and then vice versa. Like, always, it's that content cocktail. You're constantly stirring it up. You're constantly bringing in all the ingredients into whatever piece of content it is.
Like, if you're sharing an email that is more like story and personality heavy, just including one sentence like, after a long day of showing houses, or when I was celebrating my latest closing, this happened. Like, any kind of like one little sentence. Or if you're sharing something that is much more real estate heavy, adding one sentence like, of course I had to stop at McDonald's and get my Diet Coke first, or after picking up my kid from football practice, or whatever. But like, just one sentence dripping in all of the things. It doesn't have to be an entire paragraph dedicated to something. It doesn't have to be an entire section of your email. It can be so simple.
And that's a good point, because with that, you also don't need to write like a super long email. Like, your email can be valuable and it doesn't need to be like 3 hours worth of writing. If you send a good email that someone could read a story, could get a takeaway, could hear your favorite XYZ, that's going to be like so much easier to open than sending like, here's this week's market stats. Like, it's gonna resonate on some level, on one of the levels, by having that one little sentence like, I just picked up my son from football practice and then this happened. That could relate, because someone's like, oh yeah, here I am in like the school pickup line, or here I am waiting at my daughter's gymnastics meet, or whatever. Like, just something little like that has that connection point that we often overlook, and we try to just get to the point of, how do we now sell? How do we now convert? And maybe we should talk about that. Like, how do you, like, obviously we're not just spending all day on Instagram, and no one should be spending all day on Instagram, but we're not spending all this time on Instagram and email just for fun, right? Like, we're doing it to grow our business. So like, where does that actually start to happen, or where does that start to trickle in? And I will be as bold to say that if you try to operate on social media without an email marketing strategy, you're going to have like way lower results. If you pair with the email, I think you can 10x the results that you're getting. And that's like bold. And like, I guess the statistic is a 40% ROI. So I'm saying 10x. But I really think like, and I don't know what you're posting on social media or what you're emailing, but if I had to say it as like a general piece of advice, like general guess, I think you're going to 10x your results with an email list. Like, hands down, I believe that. One of my favorite emails to get is from Xanthi Appleyard. The subject lines are just so simple. Like, yep, I want to know what that means. I want to know what your opinion is on that. I want to know this or that. It's not overly creative necessarily. And she'll a lot of times highlight people that are doing things like creatively on Instagram, which I love to kind of scroll through and click on. But I think like with her emails, they kind of suck you in right away, because it's such like a like specific but also basic headline or subject line. But then I'm reading it and all of a sudden I'm getting my credit card out. I don't think I've ever gotten my credit card out fast enough. Yeah. Like, and that's how email can be. But at the same time, I've been following her forever. Like, I've been following her for a very long time. It's not like I saw her on Instagram and said like, what courses do you have for me to buy? And then you take that to buying houses, real estate, it's not an $87 mini course that you're signing up for. It's something that could cost someone 20, 30, 40, $50,000 to sell their house, or to buy a house is going to, what is the price of a house? So it's not this like one-off thing, but by showing up in their inbox, you're constantly nurturing, you're constantly top of mind. Like, you're going to be the one they think of when they need an agent. And that's like the power of it. But like, how do you pull it through the crack?
Okay, so I've got a really like easy way for someone to do this. As you were talking about all of those things, I was like, okay, I have the perfect email for someone to write right away. One of my favorite subject lines is this you? And then first name. So, is this you, Chelsea? Is this you, Kayla? And then open it up by talking about how, like, I just met with a client who, and then insert topic. It could be someone who is getting ready to buy their very first house, or needs to sell but is really overwhelmed because they have so much crap that they gotta, declutter and all of that. It could be, I just met with someone who just realized they're completely upside down on their equity and they don't know what to do. But like, explain the situation and just have it be a story. But people are going to read all of that because they're going, what me? Like, where do I come into this? And then after you share that little segment about like your conversation that you had with another client, you can say, is this you? And then you can go into like, I can help you with this. Like, if you're afraid that maybe you're upside down on your equity, or if you are ready to buy your first house, or if you are ready to do this, like, this is how I can help you, and like lay out your process and just say like, all you have to do is reply to this email. And then your PS can be something as simple as like, in case you're really busy, running the kids around today, or in case you're busy working or whatever, here's, the cliff notes of this email. I talked to a client, she said this, I'm wondering if you need help with that too. Reply back and I'll help you. But like, you're showing your professionalism, you're showing your expertise, you're also keeping them hooked. Like, they're probably going to open that email, because if someone's going, is this you? I'm like, oh gosh, what do they find on the internet? Like, what is out there, So that email, like, you could literally write that today and send that, and I would love to, like, that should be the homework. I would love to hear like the results on that.
I think we should do something really fun, since this is our 10th episode, and I think we should give them that email template as like for free. We'll link it in the show notes, because obviously it's not created as we're recording this. So we'll link it in the show notes if you want a copy. And now you can see how this all works, you guys. You're going to get on our email list in order to get that, and then pay attention to what else is going to come your way. You can look at the subject lines. I do a lot of like user behavior with email, like what made me instantly click open, what makes me kind of skip over. Link a recent Instagram post in your email. That's another really easy thing to tie in. And I wouldn't put like a million links in the email. Like, it's very overwhelming, I think, for the person consuming it. But if you can kind of just aim to have one. So yeah, I think that we will give you guys that as a little freebie.
Well, how often do you recommend agents send emails?
As often as you can have quality over quantity. That's kind of my answer. If you're just sending something super generic to get your name in their inbox, you're going to instantly be the one they unsubscribe from the fastest. I get emails from certain people twice a week, and it's fine. Maybe do I read them all? No. Someone I love to get emails from is Jen from Tonic Site Shop. Her whole email is like a marketing strategy for them. I believe she has it in her Instagram bio. When your emails are good, you can market them this way. Her Instagram bio and their website has it. It says, get our famous long and weird emails. So her emails are very heavy on the storytelling. They always circle back to something to do with business or marketing. So you're always going to get a tip or a takeaway, but she like dives into this funny or like relatable or really informative, whatever it is, story first, and then it goes into the business or marketing or whatever tip. And so she's like a great one to get emails from, to kind of see that in action. And they're hilarious, but they're a big commitment. So I don't always read them. I always save them. In fact, she sent one recently, and I actually deleted it because I was just so behind, and I'm like, delete. I'm like, it was like hurt me to delete it. It was like painful. And then later that day, my friend Katie Caldwell sent it to me because she loves her emails too. She's like, did you read this one? You have to read it. And so I ended up reading it. I'm like, the one I deleted, it came back to me, even though I tried to get rid of it. No, like, you are we're talking to agents here. Like, your main job is to help people buy and sell homes. It's not to do all these fun marketing things. But if you can write 4 emails in an hour or 2, I mean, that is going to be so worth your time. I saw a post recently, and it said how much time realtors could be spending on Instagram. Okay, it'll take you about 3 hours a week for Instagram with planning, content creation. I'm like, oh my gosh, like 3 hours a week. That is wild. You
Yeah.
guys don't have 3 hours a week to spend on Instagram. That's way too much time. My goal for you is 30 minutes. I guess in addition to that, you would have your email. So if you're at one email a month to start, like start with one a month, start that one, get it consistent, get people familiar with it. And then start to do two a month. And then maybe you start to do weekly, but like you can evolve over time.
Yeah.
But my point is like in all of this, quality over quantity every time for email. But the time spent on email can have a way bigger return than the time spent on Instagram.
Can we break down the monthly recap that we do as well? I'll let you kind of break down what it is, but the mentality behind it is to have like one email a month that maybe feels a little more like newsletter vibe without being like a canned newsletter from your brokerage. And so we came up with this like fun acrostic that makes it easy to incorporate behind the scenes, incorporate real estate, incorporate your personality, your brand menu, all of those things. So Chelsea, do you want to like break down what each of those things mean?
Yep. So recap, the R stands for reading. So this could be any book you've read recently. It could be an article that you've read that you want to share. So maybe you came across a really cool article, like Chris Loves Julia has great real estate related article, not real estate, but more like home design articles, like trending paint colors. And maybe you came across one, you're like, this would be great to share with my email list because you're communicating with potential buyers and sellers and people who have homes or want them or whatever. So like something like that could be reading, or you've seen it, you're sharing something they could check out. Eating is what E stands for. Share something you've enjoyed lately. So it could be eating or enjoyed. It could be a local restaurant. It could be just a snack you can't put down. It could be your favorite candy. It's like, I swear every time someone tells me something like that, I'm like looking up like what the candy is. Like Skinny Confidential podcast, she's pregnant and she was talking about her favorite like sour candies, and I love sour candies even not pregnant, and I'm like, okay, I have to look these up right now. Like I need sour candy. Celebrating, so this is a great way to bring real estate in. It could be celebrating a buyer that just closed on their first home. It could be celebrating a closing. Maybe it's how you celebrate. Maybe it's even bringing a part of your client experience in, and you're sharing like, hey, here's the pizzas I dropped off for my brand new home buyers that are moving into their new house this weekend. It could be, what else is in here? A new business in town. It could be the beginning of spring, like anything. It could be like, I'm so excited the White Lotus season 3 just started. Anything like that. A is admiring. This can be anything, but it's a great place to include something that has to do with real estate too, like a home feature, could be a listing. So like even when I say feature a listing in your email, try to even be specific with that. Like think through, okay, who's my ideal client? What area are they looking in and what price range? And maybe every week you share either like a house from a different neighborhood, if available, obviously. It could even be like you're trying to find the coziest looking homes in your area name. So you only share houses that look really cozy. And then even when you share the link to the listing, you could put something like, you have to see the reading nook options in this house. They are so good. And here's the book I'm going to read there. Like, oh my God, I could write emails all day long. Okay. I hope I'm making you guys as excited about this as I am excited about email.
Yeah.
Another one could be like a staging product. Like this is the staging product I make every single seller that I work with get, or that I gift to every single seller that I work with. Playing is P. So this could be a game, music, a podcast, an audiobook, and another little like side tip with recap, like the RECAP. If you're like, I want to do like my own spin on that, you could put that in Chat GPT and say, give me other versions of this that have to do with real estate. And then maybe that spits something out. And then you're like, well, now give me a version that has to do with real estate, but also my love of wine. Like you might get something like a good idea from ChatGPT that you could use as your own little acronym like that. That would be super fun and then also on brand too. So I think I've given that tip to our members in the past, but that is another great way to do it. It could also be like other things we recommend are like a home favorite, or like maybe like just like these really cute like dishes or something, and it just has to do with like seasonal or the time of the year, or like it's still related to home, right? You're still in that bubble of home, or like something that resonates with real estate. But that's a really easy way to get a bunch of real estate things mixed into your email without like having just, here's how to buy a house, here's how to sell a house, here's how to hire me. Like people are going to hire you because they want to hire you, not because you told them how. And honestly, recently we had a question in our members group, and there was a conversation going in the DMs of this one comment, and someone said that their friend, what was it now? Like their friend said, like, I know a lot of agents and I'm not sure, I don't know how to pick which one I'm going to work with when the time is right. And you gave really good advice, Kayla. What did you say? Do you remember?
Yes, I do. I remember I had a friend have the same conversation with me, and I just replied by saying, like, look, like, you have to hire the person that you're the most comfortable with. And if that's me, like, I know I can do a really great job. I know you'll be happy with me. But if it's not, your transaction is not about me. So, like, this is not going to break our friendship. It's not going to be awkward between us. I'm most concerned about you and what's best for you. And I think replying that way is a great way to really, I mean, it's kind of like when you are so desperate for business, it feels like you're like grabbing onto every little thing and not letting go. And when you are in that like desperate headspace and when you are in a state of mind where like you can't afford to let anything go, you come across a lot more pushy, a lot more salesy, and a little less trustworthy. But when you can really like hold everything like with an open hand and be like, listen, like, I am here, I am steady, I am trustworthy, and I know I can do a great job. And if you want to come along with me, like, I've got more than enough room for you. When you come across that way, I think people are going to feel that and feel a lot less pressured. And again, feel like you are much more trustworthy. And in my case, my friend ended up hiring me a year later. And so I just told, I told that agent the same thing. Like, hey, like, just give them that freedom. And, you know, it's easy to say those things. It's not always easy to feel that way. Like, I think we can be really hurt when, especially when a good friend chooses to use someone else. But it is true. I mean, there are so many agents. So I think when you can hold things with an open hand and like be gracious in your response, I think people are going to be drawn to that. And they might choose someone else at some point in time, but I think a lot of them would end up choosing you.
To me, I feel like that response would get you an instant, like they would instantly choose you based on that response, because it probably won't be the case for if they're saying that to multiple people. I don't think everyone would say that. But if they don't, my like experience has always been you just dodged a bullet.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
if they're your friend. Like maybe it just wouldn't have been a good, it could have rocked your friendship. Like let's say like you didn't answer that way and your answers were more like, well, here's why you should hire me and here's my stats and I just sold these listings, la 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 la. Like that's gonna just like completely overwhelm someone. Another like way to handle that would be like, well, can you tell me what's most important to you in the agent that you do hire? Ask the question, flip it to them. Don't like just rattle off why you're the right choice, because that's going to make you instantly look like not great, in my opinion. I do this with people that ask about our membership a lot. I've gotten a lot better at this because people will say like, oh, what's different between you and this other one? And I'm like, well, here's what we do. I'm like, no, well, what can you tell me what you're not getting from that membership? Or can you tell me what you're looking for? And I can let you know if I think this is a good fit. I always put it back on them. People want to be heard. They don't want to be like word vomited on. So that would be my other little
Well,
pairing with that.
and that's a great segue too, because I feel like, we don't want to use this podcast as like one big giant plug for the membership, but also we provide really good emails. Like our emails are so helpful, and we get a lot of responses from our members saying like, oh my gosh, I got so many opens with this one, or I got a client from this one. And so can we just like break down a little bit like what we actually provide?
Yeah, and I will always say this too, like you will get so much value just sitting here listening to this without ever signing up.
Yeah.
But if you want to save time or make your life easier, or you just don't want to figure it all out on your own, that's what we're for. So we kind of want to be for the agents who want to constantly up level, who just have that entrepreneurial mindset. I'm ready for this. I'm gonna like get this done. But we're always gonna sit here and I just told you every email secret I possibly have, I think, like in this 1 hour conversation. So obviously you don't have to join to get this from us, but we will kind of break down what you do get. I think then we won't get 45 emails asking. So we first and foremost have an automation training teaching you how to set up the automation of email so that when someone does get on your list through a free resource like a lead magnet, so we have lead magnets that you can basically promote to get someone on your list. That's like that first step, other than just saying like, hey, join my whatever your name is email club to get X, Y, and Z. Those are kind of your two ways to get someone on your list. Secondly, with that automation training, we're going to teach you how to set up Flowdesk, how to set up all the different things, techie wise to get that going, so that when someone does opt in, now they're in there, they automatically get that lead magnet delivered. They're now on your list to send future emails to, all the things. And also like the whole why behind it, more in like a deep dive, like version of what we talked about today. And then on a monthly basis, you're going to get a Flowdesk template for your monthly email and a Flowdesk template for a weekly email. So whether you send just one a month, or even if you do 2 a month, you can use like one of each, kind of built out with that monthly recap framework. And then you get 3 additional written emails. So these are like the storytelling plugin, whatever we tell you to. We'll give like a suggestion of add a photo of something that makes sense with that story. So in addition to that, it would be like the literal email templates and that themselves, and then the written email template. So you don't need to send like a newsletter vibe email, I don't think, 4 times a month. I would kind of keep that first email, like your monthly newsletter, with like the home favorites or your monthly recap or whatever. And then the other ones are more of those storytelling. Maybe you link a funny Instagram thing, maybe you link a reel or an article or something like that, but they're more simple.
Yeah.
Did I cover everything?
I think that you did. The only other thing I will add is that also a lot of the content that we provide for members includes calls to action to join your email list. So we'll even say, like, in one post, maybe it's like, I got this text from a client, here's whatever. And then we'll include like a PS even on that caption saying, if you want to know more, like what happened with this story, sign up for my email. And then the email will be like, I don't know if you saw this post or not, but I wanted to tell you more about this. And then it will like dive into that. So we do a lot of like cross promotion, pointing people to the direction that we want them to go, so that it all feels very cohesive and, again, not just totally out of left field.
And I think like what we said earlier, we're building this all out for you. So again, we're kind of just taking that, like figuring it all out, plugging all the things in, like we're doing that part. So you just have to plug in your own pieces and taking that off your plate to make it easy. So you're not like, okay, these are all great, but like how on earth do I get this all going? It's just there for you to like cut your time in half or however long. And really, I think the best way to describe all of this as a whole is it's really like a system. It's a marketing system. And that's why you'll find the posts that direct to the emails and the emails that direct to the posts. And it's all this like system. So anyways, I think that's it for my modern agent soapbox.
Just like I said about like that response to the agent, like holding things with an open hand, and like we're not like desperate, but just like coming from a place of like service, like here's how we want to help you, here's how we want to equip you. The podcast is one of those things, but the membership's another thing. So I think just throwing it out there once in a while. The last thing I wanted to talk about, which you kind of mentioned earlier, but like the emails that we love getting. Like, can we name a few of those? Maybe they can subscribe to some of these too and see where we're getting our inspiration from.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I said this one earlier, or these two earlier, but Xanthi Appleyard I love, and I love Jen from Tonic. I also really love Laura Bell Gray, Talking Shrimp. She's again kind of like Tonic, where she's heavy in the storytelling piece and then it spins into something else. She's honestly like, if you want to watch someone who really knows how to spin an email into a sale, that's a great one to just kind of even user behavior wise watch. I also took her course called Inbox Hero years ago, and it's like teaching you how to write email stories too, which I think is super, super valuable, and it's, I think, very reasonably priced. So I love those ones. I also love Hannah Brencher. She's a Christian author and blogger, and just sends really good emails. And they're just, it's like, talk about someone who can make the Bible very easy to understand. I just really like that. She always does a 25-day Advent series during Christmas where she breaks down, or like does like 25 days of like Christian stories, obviously, but she writes all year long. And I just got one from her today. And actually earlier when I said, I'm going to look through my email to find one that I actually want to open, I found two. One was from her, and it said, "What Love is Blind is teaching me about grief." So TV show tie-in. The grief thing, I don't know. I didn't read it yet. I got it yesterday. And then the other one I loved was from the Sales Girl Social, Smash or Pass business cards. And I want to know their take because I love the sales girls, and I'm just interested on their take. I'm not going to tell you. Maybe I'll tell you on the next episode.
Yeah, no, that forward that one to me because I want to see it
Oh,
too.
okay.
I also like emails from Nesting with Grace. She used to send them, I think, more consistently, but her emails do a lot of like recapping of what she's been doing on her Instagram. And then she usually will highlight like something that's going on in her like online community. So she'll like highlight people who have, redone a room of their house or whatever, and like kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's a cool way to promote like community in her brand and all of that. So she does a really good job. Tori sprinkles are really good. We've had her on the podcast. It's usually, again, just a simple story, but there's like a quick application at the end, and they're fun to read. And then Pretty on Fridays, I like her emails too. She recently switched to like Substack, and I'm still trying to figure out Substack, but in her Instagram bio, it says, "Are we really friends if you're not signed up for my famous newsletter?" And I was like, well, I want to be friends. And so I signed up for it like instantly. So hers are really good too.
Tori Sprinkle also names hers. Hers is called Nothing Fancy Friday Emails, and she always sends them on Friday. I also love Copy Uncorked. I talked about her emails a lot in the Marketing Bar podcast, but she just switched to Substack too. So we're going to have to be diving into Substack and maybe get someone on our podcast to talk about Substack. I don't know what my thought is yet on it. I am just figuring it out too.
There are so many shiny objects, and it's easy to look at other things and think like, oh wait, I could be doing that, or I could be doing this. And the truth is, like, yeah, an agent could be doing all of those things, but when are you going to serve your clients, And so I feel like you have to find that balance. But I think if you can at least find one medium like an email list, you can really like nurture your audience, become very trustworthy, become a like what we always say, you can become the real estate go-to girl in your community just because you have an email list. And the great thing about email is you can write it from home, you can write it while you're in bed, you can write it while you're watching Friends, you can write it while you're suffering from bronchitis like I currently am, if you can't tell from my voice today. But you can do all of those things on your own time and serve people in that way. And again, you're going to get people to actually see your email. You're going to get people to actually open and engage with it even more than social media. So that's why all of our social media strategy always points back to email, because it is so powerful.
Let's do a little TLDR, which is too long, didn't read. This is another thing you can put at the end of your email. So TLDR, you should be using email with your Instagram or social media strategy. It will make it 10 times more effective. And we are giving you a free email template today in the show notes that you can use to send your first email. And even if you already send emails, this is a great one to potentially use as a lead generating email. So make sure you get your hands on that. And if you tuned out at any point during this episode, please go back, because there are like 8 million takeaways about email marketing that will make your emails really, really good that people cannot wait to get. So I think that's it for today.
Yeah.
And thank you, Kayla, for hopping on here with your bronchitis. Oh my gosh, hopefully by the next episode you're good.
Again, you guys can always subscribe. You can always leave a review. We love your reviews. We read every single one of them, and they help us get into the eyes and ears of other agents. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you guys. We'll see you next Tuesday. I'm so glad we got to hang out today. If you're as sad as I am that our time is up, I've got good news. There are a couple of different ways we can keep the conversation going.
First, follow us on Instagram at Modern Agent Marketing Girls and introduce yourself in the DMs. Also, we always have a free Modern Agent resource available, so check out today's show notes for the goods.
And finally, hang out with other go-to real estate girls like you and finally create a marketing plan that works when you join Modern Agent Social Club. All the details are in today's notes.
XOXO, the Marketing Girls.